All right. So, in this chapter, we're going to talk about compiling a family history. And it's not a simple exercise and just gathering facts. And it should be a fairly quick lecture, but still very important. It's about understanding the people behind the case and constructing like this comprehensive picture that allows the attorney to advise the client effectively, to advocate properly. It's in a lot of ways, it's like building a case file in like a mosaic. Every single piece, no matter how large or small, is going to contribute to the larger whole. And as paralegals, you're most often going to be the ones doing this. You're going to be doing the interviews, you're going to be assembling the history, and it makes your role very essential to the case. So, a key part of your role is helping the clients to articulate their goals, right? And understanding that they may not be able to do this as clearly at first. Many clients who enter into the family law process are overwhelmed, they're angry, they're confused, they're grieving. And they may not have a clear sense of what it is that they want. Okay. Like what outcomes are even legally possible or what questions should they be asking? It is the attorney's responsibility to explain the options available, both legal and non legal. And it's so that the client can make informed decisions. So during interviews, it's important for you as a paralegal to listen carefully. You have to observe not only what the client says, but what they may not be saying. Because sometimes you have some unspoken concerns or fears that can surface through careful and empathetic questioning. So, when conducting client interviews, your goal is going to be to establish trust and create a professional environment where the client feels safe sharing sensitive information. And you're going to begin by setting aside enough time so that neither of you, the client, no one feels rushed, right? Dress professionally because your appearance is going to communicate respect and seriousness, professionalism. Physical space matters as well. So ensure that it's, free of distractions like other client files are put away. We want the client to feel comfortable. And a thoughtful interview environment can go a long way to kind of encouraging that openness and honesty. But at the start of the interview, it is helpful to provide the client, with your business card as a professional courtesy and to remind them, of your role. You're going to be the one who's most forward facing with them anyhow. You have to also clearly explain you're not an attorney and you cannot provide legal advice. And setting those boundaries at the beginning can maybe help to prevent misunderstandings later. It's definitely not going to prevent them from still coming to you and asking you things. But you're going to prepare the client for what will happen like during the interview. So let them know that you're going to be taking notes, that some of the questions may be personal, and that everything that's discussed is going to remain, confidential. And throughout the interview, you want to try to maintain eye contact as much as possible, even like as you write or type notes. And that's going to help you to build rapport and show that you're fully engaged, you're listening. And sensitivity during this time is paramount. Clients and family law matters are sharing deeply personal and painful experiences. So you have to be gentle with how you kind of frame questions, especially when you're asking about topics like abuse or infidelity or some kind of like financial hardship. So you want to listen attentively without judgment, or as they say on TikTok, we listen and we don't judge. Um, but you want to encourage the client to do most of the talking, and don't be afraid of the silence. Sometimes giving the client space to kind of process their thoughts leads to more meaningful information. And if expressing emotion helps them, to reveal whatever facts, allow room for that. They want to cry, they want to scream, whatever. Your role is to gather the most complete and accurate history possible. And again, that requires that you create an atmosphere of trust. You want to pay attention not only to the client's words, but to their body language. So, discomfort, hesitation, sudden changes in tone. Um, those can signal areas where additional probing may be needed, or where the client may be withholding information. So, when taking notes, try to kind of capture the client's language as much as possible. You want to avoid like excessive paraphrasing. And that's because some of the nuances may actually be lost. But Maintain a respectful and professional tone. Don't talk down to the client, don't criticize them, don't make disparaging comments about the other party, or their attorney. And most importantly, again, don't give them legal advice because they will try. If they ask a question, say, well, we got to ask the attorney. Um, Clients do often ask for like reassurance about the likely outcome of their case. So it's very common for them to say, what do you think is going to happen? Like in your experience, what have you seen before? And it is tempting to offer encouragement, but you have to avoid, making predictions about success. Not only is that like beyond the scope of your role as a paralegal, but it can create false expectations. Instead, like let the client know that their attorney will advise them on strategy and potential outcomes. Okay. So before concluding the interview, you want to always let the client know how to reach you if they remember any kind of additional information later on, and I guarantee you they will. Last thing is make mental notes about the client's personality, like understanding how your client communicates, how they handle stress, how they interact with others can be invaluable to the attorney's case strategy. So, in today's digital world, the gathering of electronic data is so crucial when it comes to compiling that family history. So, you want to find out what kind of digital devices does the family use? Computers, tablets, smartphones? Do they have Alexa? Um, who has access to them? You want to learn what email accounts the parties use, and do they have social media profiles? Is it Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever? You want to ask them about any kind of interactive websites where they may upload photos or personal information. And that's because that data can give you some important insights like evidence of spending, relationships, their lifestyle. It can also alert the attorney to any kind of potential sources of discoverable information. But you want to be thorough in asking the questions because a lot of clients don't actually realize like how much digital data may be relevant to their case. Now, to ensure that you capture the most complete picture, it is helpful to follow a structured family checklist. So start with the basics. Gather information about the parties' identities, their dates of birth, marital history. Document any kind of prior agreements. Did you have a prenuptial agreement? Did you have a postnuptial agreement? Identify and detail major expenses. What are the household costs? Childcare, education, medical expenses. Get health information for all family members, particularly where health conditions may affect custody decisions, or even need more money for child support. Determine whether there are wills, trusts, estate plans. Do they exist? If so, gather the information. Get information about child rearing arrangements. Who has historically provided care and made key decisions for the children. Okay. You also want to document any kind of business interests that are owned by the parties. You want to continue, by gathering and exploring employment history for both parties, their education levels, any contributions that they have made to each other's career advancement. And, for example, whether one spouse like supported the other one through school. Identify real property, homes, rental properties, financial assets like stocks, bonds, retirement accounts. You want to catalog personal property, vehicles, jewelry, art, collectibles. You want to look at insurance policies. Those may be relevant to asset division or financial planning post divorce. And then you'll gather all of the sources of income, even including irregular income like bonuses and commissions, rental income, investment returns. You want to ask them about any kind of pending insurance claims or court claims, that could affect the party's financial circumstances. Be vigilant about identifying even the frequently overlooked assets. Have you seen the movie Wedding Crashers? Because this always reminds me. Because it's like airline miles. They're arguing about it. If you haven't watched it, it's really funny. But they're going back and forth over the miles and arguing who's going to get them. You've got season tickets for things, intellectual property. You want to document liabilities like mortgages, credit card debt, student loans, tax obligations. You want to get tax returns for the recent years. And that can also reveal like undisclosed income or hidden assets. You want to identify assets that are owned by the kids. And then you also want to ask whether or not the parties have retained or consulted with any other professionals, therapists, financial advisors, appraisers, and all of that stuff can be critical in building a full understanding of a family's circumstances. And that's it for this lecture. I told you it was going to be easy. Bye.